they called it a game. The Ouija board, sold in toy shops, wrapped in cardboard with smiling families on the cover, looked harmless, a party trick, a laugh. But hidden beneath its innocent surface are stories buried in yellowed newspaper clippings and forgotten police reports. Stories that never made it past the third page, that were hushed or simply ignored. This is not just a story about ghosts. This is about what happens when the living reach too far and something from the other side reaches back. The Hollow Girl, 1952, Illinois. It was a chilly October night in 1952 in Aurora, Illinois. Two teenage girls, Janie McCall and her best friend Rebecca, snuck out of their homes, giggling with nervous excitement. Janie had discovered an old wooden Ouija board in her attic, dusty and engraved. Not like the cheap ones they sold in stores, it was heavier, carved from real wood, with a planchette that smelled of age and ash. The girls decided to take it to the town's oldest cemetery, St. Mary's, a place whispered about for decades, where crumbling tombstones leaned like drunks in the cold. They picked a grave at random to set up. The name engraved on the stone was Margaret E. McCall, died 1901. Janie froze. That was her great aunt. She had heard the name in passing once, always followed by her parents' discomfort. The girls sat cross-legged before the grave, placing their fingers lightly on the planchette. "Is anyone here?" Rebecca asked. The planchette slowly slid to yes. They stared at each other, each silently accusing the other of moving it. But they both looked genuinely terrified. Janie asked, "What's your name?" And the planchette spelled M-A-R-G-A-R-E-T. Then came another message. W-H-Y-D-I-D-Y-O-U-L-E-A-V-E-M-E. Before they could react, a cold whisper sliced through the air, directly behind them. "Why did you leave me there?" The girls turned around. No one. Just the graveyard wind and a rustle of dry leaves. When they looked back at the board, flames were curling up from the wood, burning without smoke or scent. They screamed and ran, abandoning everything. Janie was found the next morning in her bed, her arms clawed by red welts that bled through her sheets. She mumbled in her sleep, "She's in the mirror. She's in the mirror," over and over. Rebecca stopped speaking completely. Her parents placed her in a psychiatric hospital weeks later. Curious and afraid, Janie's family exhumed Margaret's grave. The coffin was empty. The Girl in the River, 1979, Louisiana. Angela Rayburn was a beautiful, soft-spoken 16-year-old girl living in rural Shreveport, Louisiana. The year before, her older brother Jeremy had drowned in the Red River during a summer camping trip. His death left Angela shattered, withdrawn, and pale. On the first anniversary of Jeremy's death, she invited her cousins over for a sleepover. They talked, laughed, and eventually wandered into the attic, where Angela unearthed an old Ouija board weathered but intact. "Let's talk to Jeremy," she said, voice flat with something between excitement and desperation. They dimmed the lights, lit a single candle, and placed their fingers on the board. Angela whispered, "Are you here, Jeremy?" The planchette trembled under their fingers and moved to yes. "Where are you?" she asked. SOCOLD, it spelled. The group exchanged looks of horror. "Mom knows," the board spelled next. Angela's expression changed. Something tight and haunted crept into her eyes. "What is that supposed to mean?" one cousin asked. The planchette spelled ICANTBREATHE. And then Angela collapsed. She wasn't breathing. Panic exploded. One cousin called 911, while another tried to resuscitate her. The paramedics arrived and managed to stabilize her, but she remained in a coma for nearly 2 weeks. Doctors were baffled. No physical trauma, no neurological damage, no drugs. When Angela finally awoke, she stared at the ceiling and whispered the same phrase over and over. "He's still in the water. He never left." Later, her mother confessed that on the night Jeremy died, they had argued. In anger, she had told him to go drown in that river. He ran off. He never came back. 2 days after returning home from the hospital, Angela vanished. Her shoes and a broken piece of a Ouija board were found on the edge of the Red River. Her body was never recovered. The Abraxos Cult, 1995, New York. In the winter of 1995, in the quiet suburbs of Albany, New York, 3 high school students, Colton Reed, Julia Vance, and Devin Cross, began experimenting with the occult. Obsessed with forbidden knowledge, Colton acquired a rare Ouija board from an estate sale. It was unlike anything they'd seen before, crafted from dark walnut wood with strange symbols in place of the standard alphabet. The planchette was made of iron and hummed when touched. They first used it on Halloween night. Immediately, the board connected. It introduced it. Colton documented everything in his journal. Abraxos claimed to be a gatekeeper, a spirit with secrets from the other side. At first, the messages were harmless. Predictions about class tests, private family details, small demonstrations of power. The board asked for blood. 1 drop from each of them. They hesitated, then agreed. Colton wrote, "He promised truth, and I believe him." The entity's messages became darker. It spoke of another world, of fog behind the skin, of teeth beneath the floor. Finally, Abraxos told them, "One must die to open the gate." Weeks later, Colton's mother found him dead in his room. He had carved Abraxos into his chest. A ring of salt and blood surrounded his bed. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle, just the chilling silence of ritual. Julia and Devin were arrested 2 nights later while trying to dig up a grave at Oak Vale Cemetery. In court, Julia screamed, "He promised he'd bring him back. He doesn't lie." Devin said nothing, just smiled. He was found hanging in his cell 3 weeks later, with a rusted planchette jammed into his mouth. The Ouija board itself vanished from the police evidence room. To this day, no one knows where it went. The library In the archives of the Boston Public Library, once sat a box labeled Davenport House Case, Ouija Incident, 1963. It contained a scorched police report, faded photographs, and one final chilling entry. The story began with a middle-aged librarian named Martha Glencoe, known for her solitude and fascination with spiritual texts. One day, she brought a Ouija board to work and began using it in the old reading room, one that had been closed off due to water damage. She claimed to be speaking to someone named Lorraine, a girl who died in the fire. But there had never been any fire on record. One morning, the basement door was discovered ajar. A strange odor, burned cloth and cinnamon, drifted up from below. Inside, the only thing, she wasn't supposed to leave me here. Martha was never found. The incident was reduced to a minor missing person report buried in the back of the Boston Herald. Years later, during renovations, a charred woman's shoe was found tucked behind a wall in the very room she vanished from. Final warning. People say the Ouija board is a toy, a game for bored teenagers. But these stories, buried in real newspaper archives, paint a different picture. These were real people, documented by real authorities. Their lives unraveled after that first contact, after they asked the board something they should have left unanswered. Careful what you summon. Because some doors, once opened, never close.